You are listening to the Prosperous Law Podcast. Learn how to reduce stress, have more time, and make more money. Come on in.
I'm Greg McCollum, and I built a 7-figure criminal defense law firm. I formed Prosperous Law to show criminal defense law firm owners who are desperate for success how to grow from under $200,000 to $1 million and beyond. Hi, Greg McCollum here with another edition of the Prosperous Law Podcast. Thanks for joining me. At Prosperous Law, we show you how you can learn, grow, and become. You decide what you want to do, decide how big you want your law firm to be, how successful you want it to be, whether or not you want multiple locations, how big your team is going to be. Once you decide that, you learn, you grow, and that becomes something that's a reality. When I think back about it, going back to 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012, I remember having discussions with a friend of mine who was a lawyer about growth, and we knew nothing about it. And I literally didn't think it was possible. And so there was no way I was ever going to do it because I would argue with him and other people and explain how criminal law was different, and that would not work. And that was my belief. So if I did not believe it would work, then I was closed to any possibilities. So it starts with belief. And if other people are doing it, and they're no smarter than you, they have no more resources than you, they have the same problems you have, if other people are doing it, that's proof that you can do it. And in terms of law firm growth, let's say that you have a law practice or a law firm, and maybe you're doing multiple practice areas. Maybe you're doing what I call door law, which is anything that comes in the door just to keep the lights on. And you're chugging away and you're making $150,000 a year gross. That's what you're making. And I think that's probably something that most people are going to make by the fact that they have a law degree, they have a law license, there are people that need legal services, they're out there in the community, people know who they are. It's only, 10 or say $12,000 or $14,000 a month to make that, and maybe some months you make 15, some months you make 6. But I think $150,000 is something that you probably can make without even trying. So if you look at that, and let's say just $150,000, and in the next year you grow by 30%. And when you're doing everything wrong and not doing anything right, the growth is a lot easier to come by. It's easier to grow when you're small and you're not doing that well. It's so much easier to have a high growth rate. In other words, if you're practicing at home and you got a cell phone and you're making $50,000 a year and you do a few things, it's pretty simple, or maybe not easy, but very doable to have 100, 200% growth rates, because you're so far down in what you're doing and not doing. It's so much easier to fix that. If you have a $5 million business or you have a $5 million law firm, then can you double that or triple that in a year or two? Well, it becomes much harder. And you see that if you follow stock markets and things like that. You see that with big companies, because the hot stocks are typically the ones that are the startups, the new companies, and they're growing market share and they're growing hand over fist. Whereas the older, more established companies, you're not going to see probably something like Apple double. You're not going to see the company revenues double in a year. But if you're making $50,000 a year as a lawyer, or you're making $100,000 a year as a lawyer, it's very doable to double that. And if you're making 150 and you grow by 30% over that period of time, then that's $45,000. So you just made an extra $45,000 by just doing a few simple things. If you have a $1 million law firm and you grow by 30%, you just added another $300,000 in income. That's doable. I think at my law firm right now, our growth rate is, and it changes a little bit depending on how I look at it. For example, in the first quarter of 2024, the first quarter we were on track to basically mirror what we were doing the year before. In other words, we were constant, we were consistent, we weren't losing ground, but we weren't really growing. Because a couple of things came together, and a lot of that honestly was more the team and the A players that I started relying on more, then that growth rate kicked up a lot. And so if I look at it, annualize it, then we should be at this number. But if I look at the newer growth rate that started in, say, April, May, June, then it's a faster growth rate. But say if it's around ballpark, just say it's $1 million and we grow at 30%, that's another $300,000. So that's significant. Most law firms, most small law firms, as I understand it, that growth right there is bigger than what possibly a firm did all year. The $300,000 is $25,000 a month, which is very respectable. That actually puts you in a fairly high tier. If you're doing $300,000 a year, $25,000 a month consistently, as you grade these things and look at other firms and other solos, you're really pretty high up the chain. You're doing fairly well. So that growth is there, it's possible, and it's something that, I mean, it will change your life. If money's not everything, and I'm not saying that you just have to make money and make money and make money, because, you know, money is money. It makes life easier. It makes your choices appear so you can have a choice, and your choice isn't always, I can't do that because I don't have the money. That's not living a full life. So when I go back and look at my law practice, because I wouldn't call it a law firm. It was me and one or two employees, non-lawyers, whatever. They were really, they had a lot of roles. They answered the phone, they set appointments, they typed for me back then. They did that kind of work. So it's me and two people, or me and 1.5 people, or something like that. So I'd never call that a law firm. I'd never call that a business. That's just a solo law practice. But at that time, the reason that my law firm wasn't growing, or my solo practice wasn't growing, the main reason it was not growing and would have never grown is because I did not believe it could grow. So it's just self-fulfilling. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And this friend of mine, we had decided at some point, because we had both had like personal trainers at the gym, the bodybuilding gym, or whatever you call it, the weightlifting gym. And so we decided to save money, to share a trainer and split that, and try to see what's the cheapest rate. I think we were coming out of a recession or something. What's the lowest he will go to train us, and we'll split that. And even that mindset, if you think about it, I mean, we're two lawyers. We drive these fancy cars. Why are we asking him, who is probably one of the best physical trainers in the whole region, why are we asking him to give us a cut rate? Because we were trying to save money. Because we didn't have money. We lived in scarcity. We never knew where our next case was coming in. So now we're trying to beat him up and get him to do it for cheaper. But anyway, so we start training together. So now we're going regularly to the gym. We're working out with weights. And so we have these conversations. And I remember one time we were standing out in the parking lot, and this other lawyer we know who had other practice areas, he did criminal defense, he did DUI defense, he did workers' comp, he did personal injury. He had a law firm that did a couple of different things. He had 2 locations. And he had come into town and put up billboards when, at that time, really, he was about the only one doing it. And he was ahead of his time back then. And there was one other lawyer that had a real estate company and an insurance company and all this other stuff, who was a pretty good entrepreneur. That guy was the only guy doing it. And so this new guy comes in, he puts up these billboards. But I remember sitting out in the parking lot, or standing out in the parking lot, and my friend says, he's pointing at the billboard, and he says, I mean, just put a big billboard up right there. Just put up a big billboard to advertise my practice. And, you know, billboard strategy is something else. That's another topic. That's a marketing topic. So, but my reaction to him is that won't work. And when I go back and look at it, I think, why did I believe that? What evidence did I have that it would not work? I had never tried it. I'd never talked to somebody who was doing it. This guy had a significant number of billboards, and he'd had them up for years. Why would he possibly do it if it didn't work? And in our town, it's a tourist town. There's a lot of traffic, and billboards, in terms of price, because so many people see them. Myrtle Beach has 16, 17 million visitors a year, and everybody's advertising everything on billboards. So why would he do that? Why would he pay whatever he was paying at the time, you know, $1,800 a month or $1,500 a month or $2,000 a month or more? Why would he possibly pay that out, shell that out every month if it didn't work? And I'd also heard stories that he was so busy that on a criminal case or some other case that we're all salivating over, because it's a big case, it's a big opportunity, we all want that case, and maybe it was in the news or something, and then someone says, well, somebody called him and said, you know, I'd like to meet with you, I'd like for you to hire you to represent me. And we didn't perceive this guy as even a good lawyer. In fact, we didn't think he was a good lawyer at all. He wasn't a trial lawyer. He didn't try any cases. He talked a good game. He was a good enough guy. There's nothing bad about him, but he had no trial skills. So we're over there, you know, angry and also salivating over this case. And somebody says, well, he told his assistant, like, if they don't have $20,000, I'm not even going to talk to them. So we're just shocked by that. But even then, nothing clicks in my brain that he has these billboards and he's saying, if you don't have $20,000, I don't even have time to talk to you. So how do I not make that connection? How do I sit out there and stand in that parking lot and profess the truth that I believe that it won't work when all the evidence is to the contrary? And so that belief system is something that was firmly embedded in me. I was the definition of closed-minded. I could not be any more closed-minded. I could not be any dumber. I couldn't be any more contradictory walking around with that mindset. So where did that come from? In my defense, other lawyers had put it in my head, okay? I think the numbers I just looked at earlier is not just lawyers, but businesses. Less than 5%. This one thing I saw was a U.S. Census Bureau study, so hopefully that's accurate. less than 5% of all businesses in America, the greatest country in the world for business, less than 5% of all businesses make more than $1 million a year. So all the lawyers that I knew, all the lawyers that I, grew up professionally around, were all espousing this wisdom, this collected common knowledge that I believed. There's no money in criminal law. People won't pay you. Criminal law clients are deadbeats. They're going to scam you. They're going to work against you. But if you just practice law and hang on for 10 years, eventually, somehow, magically, it'll all work out. So this had all been put into my head. There wasn't anybody that said, listen, here's a plan. If you want to be successful, follow these 20 steps. Do some of this. At least believe you can do it, because if you don't believe you can do it, why would you even try to do it? Okay? And I had no knowledge of a brand for law firms. I had no ideal client avatar or persona. I had no concept of my time value. And think about your time value. What is your hourly rate? And the first time I heard that, I thought, well, I don't really have an hourly rate. I'm a criminal defense lawyer. I charge flat fees. So what's my hourly rate? I don't have an hourly rate. So don't coach me on hourly rate, because that makes no sense, because I don't charge hourly, okay? And so that led to me doing a lot of other things to save money, because I did not understand my hourly rate. Now, what is an hourly rate? If you take, let's say, your law firm, your business, makes $1 million a year, and you divide it by 46 weeks, because there's a consensus that that's all the weeks there are in a year. Because if you just add up the holidays that are already on the calendar when people aren't going to work, like New Year's Day, Christmas Day, Thanksgiving Day, maybe July 4th, those days are baked in. And then you look at most people are over the course of a year, maybe not most, but certainly it's a goal to take a total, not at one time, a total, when you add it all up, that you were off 2 weeks, which means you were actually off 10 days, 10 work days when you didn't go in. So you subtract those two, and then also there's a consensus that something's going to happen that's going to take up another 2 weeks, whether you're sick or you have a wedding to attend, or you need to go to a graduation, or something's that you can't miss, family event. So it's 46 weeks. You could take it at 50, you could take it at 48, but I took it at 46. So 40 hours a week. So $1 million divided by those numbers, 40 hours and 46 weeks, is an hourly rate of $543 an hour. $543 an hour. So if I'm bringing in $1 million a year, that's my hourly rate. All right? If I were making, say, $200,000 as a law firm owner or law firm in a private practice, if you're not a law firm, you're a solo practicing lawyer. People use the term firm, but I like to distinguish between a solo practice, a law firm, and a law firm business, because you can have a law firm and it still not be a business. So at $200,000 gross annual income divided by those numbers, 40 hours, 46 weeks, that's $108 an hour. So the idea is, if you're making $200,000 a year, your hourly rate is $108 an hour. And so when this was explained to me, I was so resistant to it, and I thought, why are you talking about my hourly rate? I just told you I don't bill hourly. So I have no hourly rate, because I did not understand it. And so when my coaches told me, if I can pay somebody to do something, and I pay them, let's just take the $200,000 figure, and I'm paying them less than $108 per hour that I'm making money. And that made no sense to me. They said, if you clean your own house, you scrub your own toilets, and you're paying something, and you can pay somebody who needs a job, who wants to do that, and you can pay them less than $108 an hour, you should do it. If you're out there in the sun mowing your own lawn, and somebody would mow your lawn for less than $108 an hour, you should do it. If you're running errands and doing things, you should maybe have a person that works in your law firm that you pay less than $108 an hour to do those errands for you, whether it's going to the bank or delivering something or whatever it is, you should pay someone to do it. Well, because I didn't have an hourly rate, I did everything myself to save money. So I was out there, trimming my own trees, cutting my own bushes, mowing my lawn, washing my car, going shopping. Everything that I could do to save money, I did it because I was smart. I was saving money. But what I was doing was I was burning up all my time. And because I at the time didn't think, well, if I'm not out there at least cleaning up the yard, I'm lazy, I'm not doing anything. Now, part of that is because I didn't know what to do. I didn't have a clue, one, what to do, or there was anything that I could do to move the needle and change my life. I didn't know that. So you have to have access to information about what you should be doing instead of detailing your own car. If you haven't learned anything and have no idea about what kind of things will increase your business, then you're never going to do that, and you're never even going to understand it, and you're going to argue with somebody that says it just like I did. And I think they would just stare at me thinking, these are my coaches, stare at me thinking, how are we going to get through to Greg when he won't even accept this? And somehow they did. And somehow I figured it out. So now, at this stage in my life, I think who, not what. And at this stage in my life, if I'm standing in line at the grocery store, or I'm standing in line at the dry cleaner, or I'm doing some kind of manual labor task, like, say, cleaning my own swimming pool, it makes me uncomfortable. Not because I think I'm too good to do that. Some of those things I actually enjoy, and I used to enjoy doing them because that was a mental break, because it kind of took me out of the stress I was dealing with. And also, the other thing, truthfully, if I'm honest about it, I felt good about myself because I was saving money. Now, when I'm doing it, I feel bad about myself. I think I should be working on these projects. I should be doing the stuff that I have laid out on my computer to do. I should be moving that stuff into existence and coming up with another thing to implement rather than standing here, wasting time. So it's a mindset shift. It's a mindset shift that has to happen. It had to happen with me, and it took me years to embrace that. And it's important. And if you're listening to this and you reject it, it's important if you want to grow, if you want to learn, if you want to have a $500,000 law firm or a $2 million law firm, it's important that you at least start to embrace this and think about it. Now, like I said, there's the other element. You have to know what to do with your time, and it's a mindset shift that you have to make. And I remember for years, maybe a decade or more, maybe 2 decades, I can't remember. Every time I went in my law office and did anything, whether I was somebody called me on the phone, or I was talking to somebody that worked for me, or I was solving some problem, I would go home feeling bad. I would feel like I hadn't worked. And the only thing that I considered working was if I had a client file on my desk and I was working on it, prepping it for trial, or making a witness list, or doing legal research. I considered every other thing I did a waste of time. Even if I was creating a system that was going to solve future problems, or if I was on the phone with someone who's trying to sell me some kind of marketing device, or somebody's trying to sell me some advertising, or somebody's trying to, get me to go to a networking event, or anything like that, or if I was, taking the time to sign up and register for a CLE to go somewhere and learn something and maybe possibly meet a referral source, if I wasn't at my desk working in the file, I felt bad about myself. I felt like I was loafing and laying off and not concentrating on doing my work. So I was 100% focused on the wrong thing. Now, don't get me wrong, the work is important. You have to do a good job. But I was 100% focused on working in my business and not doing anything or scheduling any time to work on my business and to figure out how to make my business better, how to make my business more profitable, figure out how to make my business where it can grow and serve more people and take care of my employees and take care of the people that rely on me. All of my attention was doing the work. And I did that for years. And it was just based on ignorance and not knowing anything and having a closed mind. That's all I did. And that was my value. I felt good about myself if I worked in those files. Now, with all the interruptions I had and all the things that I had in my chaotic day of going from one court to the other and desperate to meet a potential client and desperate to have somebody hire me, I wasn't working in the file. I was pulled away from the file, and I felt terrible. I felt bad about myself because I had no concept of working on my business. I don't think I'd ever even heard the term. I don't think one time had anyone ever said to me where I listened that said you need to work on your business, not in your business. And if you're there working in your business and you're doing something and your hourly rate is $108 an hour, and there is somebody on this planet that's reliable and pleasant and dependable that can do that for you, and you're not paying them to do it, you're making a mistake when it comes to growth. And I don't know if that's a hard concept for people or not. I only know my experience. I was dumbfounded by it. And I think it probably took me years to finally understand it and embrace it. But it's very important, but I think it's more than very important. I think it's essential. Think who, not what. Think about your hourly rate and have some trust that if you stop doing the things that are not making you grow and not making you learn, have some trust, give it a go. You have to replace it though. You can't just, you can't just lay around in your house eating cookies and watching TV. You have to replace it with something. You have to trade something of that lower nature for a higher nature. If you just hire people to do all your work and then you don't do anything to work on your business, then it's not going to work. And so you might as well just give up and not even try. I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about being lazy. I'm talking about being disciplined and focused and learning and growing and becoming. It's possible. I did it. I'm still doing it. I still have my law firm. My law firm's still running. Right now, my law firm is humming. People are on the phone doing good work. My lawyers are in court right now. I'm doing it. Others are doing it. You can do it too if you have the belief. Once you have the belief, you start seeing the opportunities and the abilities to do it. So thanks for listening. See you next time. If you want to know more, go to prosperitlaw.com. We show criminal defense law firm owners how to reduce stress, have more free time, and make more money. Thanks for listening.